Hey BookTube, this is Jack from Jack's Literary Corner, and I finally finished another Stephen King book. Yay! So I think part of my problem is I made the mistake of the books I would start with by Stephen King, where I started with the long tomes, and I knew that was going to take me forever to read. I mean, especially because a lot of times, even if there's supernatural elements to the story, he kind of also writes about everyday life. So sometimes that was going to be kind of tedious. And I prefer, most of the time, I like the more fantasticalness in fantasy books. And, I get through those a lot quicker. Although, the books I get through the quickest are, the YA books that are in the YA category or middle grade. I'm currently reading a book that I'm talking about. I'm going to talk about in a video I'm going to film after I film this one. But it's a middle grade series. A middle grade, because you're dealing with you're writing mostly for 12-year-olds, 12 to 13, I should say 10 to 13, then you have to keep that in mind, that their attention spans are not always going to be there, and they're not going to want to read something with literary merit. But anyway, so I finally finished and read Misery, which is a book I got last Christmas from my sister. And, part of the reason why I decided to get back and get this one actually finished was because I did get it last Christmas from my sister. And it was kind of like, okay, I felt like, okay, since I just got this, I should probably read it, kind of thing. But, I'm sure a lot of people know this story because it's been a movie starring Kathy Bates and James Caan. This is about an author, Paul Sheldon. He has been commercially successful with writing the Misery series, historical fiction. I think there's paranormal elements in the story, but he is tired of writing Misery's character and writing this series, and he wants to move on and write something with more literary merit. So he decides to kill the character off and writes a manuscript for a book called Fast Cars that I think is about a car thief or something. Something that he actually really cares about, and he's not just writing it because he knows it will sell. He's writing it because it's something that he's passionate about and he cares about. And of course, with that kind of stuff, you kind of have to get something to sell first before you can write something that you are really passionate about. Not always, but the things that you are passionate about won't necessarily sell to an audience. So one day when he's traveling, he gets caught in a snowstorm and ends up in a car accident where he is rescued by his number one fan, Annie Wilkes, who was obsessed and very passionate about the Misery series. To the point where, when she rescues Paul and decides to nurse him back to health, she basically sees him as a murderer. Even though the character is not real, to her, Paul is a murderer because he killed off a character that she cares about and loves. A character that she is passionate about. And she decides that not only does she make him burn the Fast Cars manuscript because she doesn't think it's that good and thinks the Misery series is better, but she also, let me put this right here. So, I was tired of holding it. But she makes a deal with him. She will let him go if he writes a new Misery book where Misery comes back from the dead. But, of course, it has to be fair. Not realistic, but fair. In fact, she rejects his first attempt because it wasn't fair and it didn't make any sense in her mind. And she basically tortures him. Anyone who tries, if anyone tries to rescue them, she'll kill them or hurt them. She basically keeps him drugged, keeps him complacent, and will snap at any moment if he pisses her off to any extent. And even in the smallest way, he makes a request for a special kind of paper. Of course, that's a way to get her to leave, and she gets pissy about it and snaps at him. And, he's even afraid. It's she gives him this really old typewriter with missing keys, and he's afraid to ask her for a new typewriter because he's worried what she's going to do to him if he makes that request. but she is crazy on a June bug and has these, and that's, and basically that's the whole story. Him being kept hostage in her home, and she keeps him drugged. She, tortures him. She makes him nervous and scares him, and she even leaves him at periods of time. And she's not just leaving him, and of course he has no access to his medication, or to food, or the bathroom, or even a bedpan. She just leaves, and at one point he has to drag himself to his wheelchair to get to the kitchen and the bathroom, all because she was in one of her moods where she had to leave. And worse, that she lives on a farm, so she has all these animals to take care of, but she does not. She's a narcissist. She does not care about those animals and that they're suffering too, not just Paul. But the book is disturbingly good. And I don't mean as in I was surprised that it was good. I knew it was going to be good because it's Stephen King. Yes, I know a lot of people criticize his later books, the ones he's just come out with, and I have not read those books yet, but I did buy some of them. At least one of them, anyway, that I remember. So, but most of the time he's a great writer. And this was an older book, so of course it's going to be good. But I say disturbingly good because it is a very disturbing story. I mean, first of all, I think the only difference between those of us who are fans of someone, whether it's an actor, a writer, whatever, the only difference between us and her, and I don't know, I don't know all the fans in the world, so who knows, maybe some of them are as crazy as Annie, but that's the difference, we're not all crazy. We wouldn't resort to holding our favorite our writer that we like hostage and then threaten to break their leg or hurt someone who tries to rescue them or snap at them. I mentioned this in my adaptations video. My chatting about adaptations video, I mentioned about Once Upon a Time that I really loved the series in the beginning, but then I was pissed off with the direction. I was very emotional, but in the long run, I would never, I made a joke about it once. So I know we'll go all misery on Adam Horowitz and Eddie Kissetts. But really, even though I disagree and think that they blame favoritism and all the writing was not great, I still would never do something that crazy. I would never hold them hostage. I would never, first off, I'm too chicken to do it, and which is probably a good thing. And then I don't have the money to do it. Of course, if you're crazy enough, you will make sure you're capable of doing that. But of course, the only reason Annie got a hold of Paul was he happened to crash his car near her home. But, like I said, she makes him drink dirty, soapy water to get him to swallow the pills. Because he can't drive, and he basically has to drag himself to get the food and to find out if there is any small possibility of escape and to get the medication he needs because he's in pain. And her reaction to him saying, I am in pain, I need the medication, is, oh, quit being such a baby. But, his legs were broken. His legs were broken. And then at one point she ends up cutting off his foot because she gets angry at him. And so it's so that's not him being a baby. It's not like he accidentally stubbed his toe or skinned his knee or something, or he lost his favorite toy, or he's not getting attention from mom and dad. His legs were broken. Yet her response is, don't be such a baby. And then on top of that, he finds out about at one point in the story, he finds out about all these people he murdered because she's paranoid and thinks they're out to get her, and she's ambitious. Which the only time you see that is in a political drama or a fantasy drama, political fantasy, and then you might see them poison somebody, or even in medieval historical fiction, especially medieval times. It's the only time you see someone poisoning someone or torturing someone. This is regular life. This is a contemporary set story. I don't what year? I'm gonna go by the year. Right? Probably gonna go by What year? So the original copyright date is 1987. So this was in the 80s. So so even though I'm reading this today in the 2019, the 2000s, I'm gonna look at it as it's set in the 80s. Either way, it's a modern time period, so it's not acceptable. So you can't just chop off people's limbs or poison them just to get your point across or to get rid of somebody. Unless you're a TV show writer. But, and it's so interesting because you knew she was already crazy, especially when we get to that scene where Paul reads about all the people that she's already killed. People that have mysteriously died. But her slow descent into madness. I mean, there's one point, it's really gross. There's one scene where Paul goes into the kitchen because he's looking for food because she's once again having one of her whims where she decides, I need to leave the house. And he goes into the kitchen and there's all this food, all the sugary foods on the table, has not put away neatly, like ice cream and stuff and cookies and all that good sugary sweets. And she didn't even bother. She was in such a depressed state that she didn't even bother with silverware. I mean, when she comes in the room before she leaves, you can see like food all on her clothes and on her face that she didn't even bother to clean herself up. When she went inside, she just decided, I need to leave. So it was kind of gross. Just the way in which, I mean, Stephen King does not shy away from gross. From having gross stuff. Because, I mean, it's real life. Sometimes people can be really gross and pervy. That's just there are people in real life that are like that. But you see her slow descent into madness. And then on top of that, you see even, Paul kind of goes through some form of madness because it's like he's going back and forth fighting himself. On one hand, he's resigned to a situation and knows it, and he's going through this Stockholm Syndrome PSTD kind of situation where he's resigned to his fate, and he's afraid to grab for help because she will be like, if I hurt this person who tried to help you, then it's your own fault. Which, God, people like that, I can't stand villains like that. I wish people wouldn't write villains like that, in a way that they make me angry when they're like, it's your own fault. Which got me, and I'm thinking that probably, on some level they know it's wrong, what they're doing, on some tiny level, or they don't want to get blamed, they know they'll get blamed for it, so it's like, to make it easier on themselves, they can blame the person that's trying, their enemy, the person who's trying to stop them, the protagonist, or, the hero, or whatever. They're like, well, it's your own fault. Because it's easier because if you make them feel bad and blame themselves, you tell them, well, it's your fault. And because that a good person, a rational and good person, there will be a little slight guilt. But they will blame themselves because the bad guy was like, you call for help, then I'm going to kill them. I'm going to hurt them. And there's an infamous scene where she does that very thing, which is so, oh my God, I can't believe she did that. Although I was prepared for that moment. I was anticipating that moment because I did watch Murphy Napier's review, because I, of course, know the story and how it's going to work out. So it wasn't a big spoiler per se. I mean, it kind of was and kind of wasn't, but it was like, whatever. I'll just let myself get spoiled. But you almost pity her, because she doesn't understand. She's not thinking clearly. She's such a narcissistic person. It's all about her, and she's so paranoid, and you gotta wonder what happened, because they don't give away any details about her. They just talk about her victims and hints at what her life was like before. And you gotta wonder what finally made her snap. What is the trigger that made her crazy? Why was she so easily susceptible to murdering people? In fact, she basically, things that would be minor irritations, I know some people don't like kids, and I do like kids, I just don't want to have any of my own. But she basically wants them to shut up and calls them all brats and is like, well, we'll kill them just to shut them up. So she's one of those people. I mean, even minor annoyance that bother people, she will actually fall through and actually get rid of that minor annoyance. Now, a rational person would be like, yeah, you just want to get away from it, or like you admit that I don't want to have kids because kids are annoying, they drive me crazy. Of course, people don't really mean it when they say that. At least I don't think they do. You never know. But I do wonder what exactly sealed the deal for her. Why is she like that? Is it in her Was it in her family? Or just does she happen to be someone that's born crazy? It's definitely interesting to think about. And then of course you feel sorry for Paul. Even though he's not a saint, you still he's a prisoner and he can't. And it's the book looks at the whole idea of wanting to please yourself and writing something with something that you are passionate about, something that you consider a literary masterpiece or something that you at least care about, and then trying to balance that with writing something that will please other people, that will please fans, that will be successful and get you money and stuff, so you can live off your novels, and the struggle with having to please fans. And how scary that can kind of be, because we get crazy. That's why I always, jokingly say that I would tell actors that if I had more time to talk to some of the actors I like, other than the 3 minutes that I get with them, when I go to conventions and stuff, I would love to tell them, be like, you shouldn't be afraid of critics. You should be afraid of us. Because critics, they can, give you negative, mean words. But with fans, we'll be like, we're not even professional. We're irrational, we're crazy. And, there might actually be people like Annie Wilkes who are that crazy that they'll kidnap you and hold you hostage. So it looks at that balance and you want to please yourself, but you also have to keep in mind that these fans are the reason you're successful, why you're able to make money off of your books. Because of fans. So it's pretty much a struggle, I feel like, and it's scary because you never know what kind of fans you're gonna deal with. I mean, it's even worse on the internet because people will deliberately tweet the author or the actor and insult them on Twitter. So, it's a good thing that Paul didn't have to deal with Twitter back in the day. That, it was just happenstance that he runs into his crazy #1 fan. Although there is fan letters. He does get fan letters. And he does encounter a fan that is not as bad as Annie, but has the potential for that. He does at one point encounter someone like that has hints. And then the only negative thing, which I think was done on purpose, was that the book is a bit slow, and it's basically talking about, Paul's day-to-day life with Annie, and all the really scary things happen so sporadically. So it's not, so it's like, not a lot goes on, he's basically taking the pills she gives him and eating his daily meals, and talking about his writing. And there are also excerpts from his novel if you are interested. Now, I personally like Murphy. Actually, I had no interest in reading them. I just wanted to know what was going to happen with Annie and Paul, and if he was going to escape in their relationship, how he was going to escape. And I was waiting for those scenes that I constantly hear about all the time from this book, because it's one of his more popular works. And so it's not always the most exciting book, you're mostly getting Paul's thoughts while he's writing his book, in his brief conversations with Annie, and, periods when she leaves him alone, and his desperateness. Like, at one point she locks him in the cellar because she's afraid someone will see him, and it's dark. She won't even give him a light because she's worried if someone will see that little bit of light. And she tells him that there's rats down there, and she sets traps for them, and he's, freaking out about that, and it's dark, so he's all alone in the dark, and he doesn't have anything to write with. He just has food and something to drink, and some liquid to drink. So not a whole lot of stuff happens in the story. It's not always the most exciting story until it gets to the parts where Annie snaps. That's the most exciting thing, and the whole idea of the fear and the anticipation that oh my God, is he gonna get out of this, or what is Annie gonna do now? Did she make him mad? I mean, did he make her mad? Like, what's she gonna do? Like, that's the most exciting thing. It's like those moments, those sporadic moments throughout the book where you're anticipating what's gonna happen next. Is Annie gonna catch him? Is she gonna torture him? Is he gonna escape? How is he gonna escape? And of course, maybe the manuscript he's writing, who knows, maybe that might interest you too, and that might be exciting on some level. But this book was so great. I didn't give it 5 stars on Goodreads. I was debating between 5 and 4 stars. But in the end, I just really enjoyed this book and loved it, and was so intrigued by it and so excited by it. And I definitely like this book better than Revival. Although Revival, to be fair, came out in the early 2000s, and the plot wasn't it was interesting, but it wasn't again, it read like a Lifetime movie. Like, you could see this being a movie on Lifetime. But anyway, so it was such a great book. I know not everybody loves it, and it does get a bit gruesome at times. But it's not a long book. It's just so interesting and so intriguing and kind of scary. And I think Annie Wilkes is one of Stephen King's scariest villains, because she's an average person. She doesn't have supernatural powers. She's not a paranormal. She's a regular human that happens to be crazy. And she's already crazy. Jack Torrance slowly goes crazy, but she's already crazy. She just gets more crazy. And she will do whatever she has to get what she wants. To make herself happy. Because it's all about her. Like I said, she's a narcissist. I'm pretty sure. So it's so good. So enjoyable, I mean. And I would, I definitely, if you're a Stephen King fan, then I'd check it out. It's not that long of a book. If you don't like it, you don't like it. I loved it personally, but that's just me. So those are my thoughts on Misery by Stephen King, and now I'm going to jump into Pet Sematary soon, so I can read another Stephen King book and actually finish it, because I want to try to read at least either 1 more or 2 more Stephen King books this year, because I want to, progress in my Stephen King project, and I was feeling like guilty that I hadn't finished any Stephen King books. I mean, I could easily have started some of his short story collections, but I didn't, because I just wasn't in the mood for it for some reason. So, if you guys liked this review of Misery, give it a thumbs up and click subscribe if you haven't. As always, I hope you are enjoying your reading, and I will talk to you guys later. Alright, bye!